welcome to A Seat at the Table. I'm excited to have my friend, Brother Nate Roberts, here with us today. And I've been friends for a long time. We've been trying to do ministry in all sorts of areas together for I don't know how many years. And so I'm just honored to have him on here today. And before I pitch this to him, just kind of give you a background of where this started. My wife and my boys and I were privileged to be with them over the weekend there in Wilson, North Carolina, and just a great church, great event that they hosted there. And we were privileged to talk a little bit about social media and just about some of the things that are going on in our world today, to ministry and to some of their students there on a Saturday morning. And Pastor Nate used a comment and a kind of just a term that I've never really dove into when it comes to social media in quite that arena, I guess you would say. I've always thought of it of just, an over connection and everybody being extremely connected, probably more than ever before. But he used the term isolation. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, he termed it the illusion of isolation. And so I'm going to let him kind of speak to that, and then we'll just kind of have some discussion on it. We want to thank everybody for listening in. Most of all, thank you, Brother Roberts, for jumping on here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Honored to be able to be on this platform with you, with my good friend. And just to echo that, thank you for everybody that is tuning in. We had this ministry session at our church, and we, like you said, dove into social media. And I started thinking the morning of the session about, I think, a lot of the issues that some of the generation today tend to have, especially with social media, with cell phones, just with access to everything that they have access to, that we all have access to now, and how it's so easy to think that you are isolated, and that when you get frustrated, when nothing's going your way, when you begin to get overwhelmed with the pressures of life, how it's easy to go to your room, shut the door, and just think that you're isolated. Nobody has any access to you, and you're alone, you're by yourself. I don't want any influence on me. I just want to breathe. I just want to do my own thing, live my own life, and just kind of let my mind speak for itself. But then we go straight to our phones or our computers, and we don't realize that we're not really isolated in that moment. You know, that we're pretty heavily influenced, rather, with our accounts, the people that we're following. And the way the algorithm is, it's not even people just that you're following now. It's just anything that, can speak to you, anything that would, drive your interest in that moment. And how we think that we're isolated, but we are constantly bombarded with stuff that is feeding us, that is influencing us, that is pushing us to certain ideas and certain mindsets. I think I also made the comment of something along the lines of how, our phones and social medias and different networks, they connect with one another. They feed information off of one another. So if you are, frustrated, and like you listen to songs that kind of help drive that frustration. Like when I want to glorify God, I listen to music that, worships and praises Him. Some people, if they are angry at life, they're angry at the world, for some reason, they're going to listen to music that promotes being angry at life and angry at the world, and your other applications are aware of that. And so they will help push content towards you that just continues to push that ideology. And so you think that you're isolated, but really you have fallen into where we get the illusion of isolation. You're not isolated, but you are influenced. When you think that shutting your door to voices outside of the walls of your room is a good idea and it's going to silence voices, you're really opening your ears and your mind and your eyes to way more things than you would if you just went out and talked to somebody.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's such a powerful way of looking at it, because I think, and I mentioned it a little bit Saturday, it's like that's the part of it that we're supposed to give to God solely. Like, you kind of have the prayer closet or a time of devotion or stopping and just be still and know that I'm God type thing. And that are we really ever able to stop and just, like, I mean, you and I both know, I see kids, I I have kids, it's like that bored is not a thing anymore. It's like
Yeah.
my son's like, "I'm bored. Can I have your phone? I'm bored. Can I get a tablet? I'm bored. Can you turn the TV on? I'm bored. Can we go do something?" It's like there's like this almost this part of me that like it's okay for there to be nothing going on. It's okay for there to be silence. It's okay for you to, to feel like you need to be alone with God. And so, like, is there even a such thing as a prayer closet of isolation for these students? As long as they have their phone on them, or studies show that even if the phone is near them, it's pulling their attention, this fear of missing out. And you've got this like curated perfection that's created by social media that, everything is a highlight reel of vacations and achievements and flawless selfies. And this, you created kind of this warped sense of reality, correct? So, when you scroll through it, it's easy to feel like everyone else is fuller and happier. And, you're stuck in this mundane, struggling all alone, and so, I remember, I think it was in 2018, the University of Pennsylvania put out this study that, since social media, it just correlates and just walks hand in hand up the rise of the statistics of how there's been increased feelings of loneliness, depression, because of, I guess it would have to be because of the comparison, idea of just this trap you find yourself in, that you're really not isolated, but there's a gap between your real life and these polished posts that are put up, that make us feel that way. So, I think what you're speaking to is just it's such a true and, real thing, but it also replaces, maybe we could say it this way, it replaces the depth with, if you want to give it kind of a cliche statement, it's like you replace depth for breadth. It's like
Mm,
it's so big, but it's so shallow.
right.
You could say it that way. It's like you might have 500 friends and followers or whatever, but how many meaningful connections do you really have?
Right.
That's like how many meaningful relationships. Social media encourages like these quick likes. I can go to this and get what God's supposed to give me. I think that's the supplement thing, right? I mentioned
Mhm.
it Saturday that Baal is that God of the turning away. Anything you turn away from, when you turn away from God, he's always there. That's
Yeah.
Baal. It'll be what you want. That's what social media is. And even back then, you could go see it in museums today. They had pocket size idols, like little rabbit foot almost. They got in their pocket. It's like this idol that will please them. They can turn to, they can speak to, they can pray to. And I think
Mhm.
that's really what social media and cell phones have become. Instead of turning to God, we turn to it. We
Yeah.
want to scroll. We want to find the algorithm. We want to click on it. And that it's just giving us what we want, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
this. Um, you've got so many things coming at you, and it's like this party of 100 people that I can gather to like this post, that agree with me, that feel the way I feel. Like everything's like a subtext almost. It's
Yeah.
like I got to put myself out there. I'll put myself enough out there that I can maybe grab the crowd that I want.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then all of a sudden a DM thread is opened, and you may be talking to someone or open up to somebody that really you shouldn't be, or shouldn't be speaking into your life. How many times that's happened over years of student ministry is just innumerable.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a man, such a topic, and I don't, you know I guess asking the question, meaningful friendships, how many do we have?
Mm.
Is it truly one of those things where today our students really connected the way they were? But it's an illusion, like, the word you use is this illusion of, you're not truly isolated,
Yeah.
but you're also, if you're not careful, you're not connected either. So it's
Mhm.
like you don't win on either side of the spectrum.
Right. And it's hard to realize 'cause, to a lot of people, I would say the younger generation, but really just I think humanity, period. Yeah, everybody, it seems to make sense. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, yeah, it sounds goofy when you say it out loud, but like just to the subconscious, It's, why wouldn't you do that? Why would you open up a book that tells you what you need to hear, and you're going to have to change some things in your life in order to get where you need to be, whenever you could open up a device and read what you want to hear and what you want to see, and that's just going to make you feel better about the predicaments and the stuff, that you're in. And I've mentioned it before too, how we take stuff to posts and to stories, and sending content online. We post things that we should be bringing to the altar, stuff that we should tell God, we tell everybody else, and we never bring it to the Lord. We always just post it because we know that somebody is going to comment and say, I feel so sorry for you. I really, hey, everything's going to be okay. Instead of us bringing it to the Lord and God saying, well, I can fix this, or it's really not that big of a deal. And the reason that you're going through this is because you're doing that, and we get the answers that we need, but to people nowadays, it makes sense to, go for what you want instead of, what we need. Don't eat the greens, just keep eating the chocolate cake and
Yeah,
whatever
it's
feels
that.
good.
There's a book called The Wisdom Pyramid. It just talks about literally social media from a diet standpoint. And I think that's so true, but
Mm,
you mentioned it earlier. It's like almost a echo chamber of like everything that you feel and you
mm,
want or you're dealing with. It's just like the content matches your interest because that's the algorithm. It starts off with I'm a male and I'm 35 and it gives the world's naturally gonna market. I am the user and the money is trying to drive me and push me to whatever it wants to. But
right.
as you navigate it, then it starts to see, hey, you like this, you like that, you're interested in this. And so it'll push you based upon your interest. And it's ultimately narrowing your world, right, to some extent. And so you might feel isolated because you're not really exposed to diverse perspectives because it's just pitching you certain ones. Like it's taking you where it wants you to
Right.
go. And so things that could challenge you or things that could enrich your thinking, it's maybe not physical isolation, but it is a mental one. Like you end up in the same corner of the internet that you would have ended up in the corner of that room. Like it's the same clique, it's the same group, it's the same bubble that you've inhabited because these are the people that, you end up having, it's like the old chat rooms. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
literally there's Facebook groups, there's pages, and it's the same thing. And some people, they follow out of curiosity, but ultimately you have that group that's engaged with that page or engaged with that content. And that's, and then you couple it with, they're getting a dopamine hit every notification. It triggers like a reward response, like training a dog, but it's ultimately fleeting, right? It eventually is not going to work. Like we're such adaptable creatures. So we're not going to keep doing what the dog's going to keep doing, like we
Yeah.
can, the adaptability of mankind is probably one of the most fearful things about us. Like we can live anywhere in the world, but if you take a polar bear and put him, you know, outside of his region, outside of his atmosphere, he's not going to survive.
Mhm.
And so you have, you may train animals that way, but eventually you're wired to keep pushing, to keep chasing. You're gonna, it wants you to stay plugged in, but eventually you're gonna want more. You're gonna
Right.
adapt. You're gonna you're gonna want to expand. And so that's how it works with everything. It's like this is not enough. It doesn't matter if it's drugs. It doesn't matter if it's alcohol. It doesn't matter if it's working out. It doesn't matter if it's food. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's like you just want more. And so you can use that on both sides of the coin. But I've seen, people staring at their phones at dinner, right? Like they're not even we're sitting here and the podcast is, called A Seat at the Table, and it's like how many tables. And that's one of the reasons that we've kind of coined it that way, is like to bring back conversation, to bring back relationships, to bring back things that need to be discussed because they're not being talked about, right? So
Yeah.
the irony is that you're sitting with somebody, but yet you're not connected to them.
Mhm.
And then you live in this false idea of, you know, and I'm connected to all these people. I got all these followers, you know, and it's like almost the irony of it is
It's really the polar opposite. You're more disconnected than you've ever been, you know?
yeah, you're physically present, but you're emotionally absent, and so
Yeah,
you're isolated in a crowd of people. How many times have we seen that? You're like, "Hey, man, you're
yeah,
here. There's like tons of young people here. You know, your wife might be here, your husband." You know, you never know. It's like they're searching for it everywhere, but like in the real natural way, and so therefore there's been tons of consequences for that.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
and that's I guess. And all that being said, I guess what do you feel like is a solution? Like what's the application to all of it? It's obviously easy to point out all of the problems and, but how do we navigate it? How do we, figure it out? Like what's your perspective? I know you're in student ministry and you deal with all kinds of problems, but yet you're not active on the internet world. I'm here. Like that's what we're doing. We're creating content
Right.
because I do think that we're foolish to not contribute content. That's where, people are and they want to listen, they want to, take it in. They want to use it. So that's what we're trying to be a part of. But what's the lines? Like what do you feel like something that's been successful for you?
I definitely, I know for me, myself, just taking time off and listening to people that have told me, "Nate, you need to close the laptop, you need to put the phone down, you know, go outside, touch some grass." Go to go do those things, as frustrating as that stuff is, and, you know, I mean, well, nowadays with my students, I can't say I'm only 30 because when I say I'm 30, they're like, "Man, look at you, yeah, you're up there," and I'm like, "Wow, okay." But just actually listening to the advice that is given to me by my wife and by peers and by my friends, and not just taking it as something like they don't know what they're talking about, you know, because we can have this tendency, just content creators in general. I mean, I've been to a creator party or a creator meetup, I believe is what they're called in New York. It was my first time ever in New York, and you know, I went around and tried to talk social media with these guys, and I realized pretty quickly everything that I was saying was just kind of like hitting the fan with them, and they were like, "Yeah, okay, like I already know this stuff, and I know how to navigate it, and I know how to do this, and I know how to do it." So I wasn't reaching anything. Like they weren't going to take any advice from me because they've been through the trenches, I guess, with all of that stuff. And I think a lot of young people is like, well, like our generation, we grew up when social media was becoming a thing. I did social media on Vine. Some young people watching this are probably like, "What in the world is that?" Same thing as MySpace. What is all that kind of stuff? We had music on our profiles and everything. So, like we grew up when it was being generated, but a lot of the upcoming generation, they grew up and that's what they knew. Like they grew up on Instagram, they grew up on Facebook, and they grew up with all these social media platforms, and so they kind of feel like they have ownership of this stuff. We know how to navigate it. So, you're like, you need to take a break, but it's just because you don't really know it. But we can't look at it that way. We have to take advice from people who have let go of those things, who have done it, and pay attention to the voices that you're listening to. If you're listening to people that are like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, but they also can't lift up their face from the phone at the table, then be mindful of that, because you as long as you're stuck on something, you're going to be doing things that you never thought that you would do. I can't tell you how many times I've thought, just thinking of the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible, how I would be like going crazy if a snake come up to me and was like, "Hey, so you want to eat of this fruit?" I'm like, "Whoa, a talking snake?" I'd like it immediately would throw me off. And other people were probably like that, like, "Yeah, Eve, why is she talking to a snake?" But who's to say how many times have we done things and watched things and listened to things that we never thought that we would because we were by ourselves and we were isolated and we're tuned into things, and we do things that we never thought we would do. I think it can be the same thing, vice versa, but you have to put yourself in those situations. You have to put yourself in the altar. You have to put yourself in the church services and where you say in the same sense, I never thought that I would clap my hands and praise God. I never thought that I'd have a devoted prayer life. Well, why not? Just
Yeah.
go pray. go to church, ask your pastor, whatever, what do you need help with? What can I do? Can I clean? Can I do this? Can I do that? And get plugged in different areas. Get the illusion of that isolation out of your head, and get plugged in with real people for a real cause. But then, like you're saying, to be able to actually navigate it, because we are creating content. I think you paged it the best whenever you talked about. Oh man, you might have to help me. It was something along the lines of how they had these goals, but there was like only one thing that they had to avoid in the garden, and now right, like it's all these different things now that we have to avoid, and we're going towards this
Yeah, yeah.
one.
So we
Right.
flip the script. So you start out in Adam and Eve have one rule about one tree, right?
Yeah.
And it's like now, it's like the total opposite. They had everything they wanted let's say this, everything they needed,
Yeah.
and then they had one forbidden thing.
Yep.
Whereas I feel like in our culture, we're surrounded by this world that we're in, but we're not of, and we've just got to bypass all the noise and all the things and all the distractions to get to the one thing, right?
Yes.
And it's really that one tree, that's the cross, right? So,
Yep.
yeah, I think that's such a narrative.
Yeah. So that's what we were talking about. And that's one of the ways that, and the reasons that we're doing what we're doing here today, I believe.
Yeah.
And the reason that I push social media so much and the reels, and I still watch YouTube videos about, how to navigate the algorithm, how to get your videos to blow up, and how to do this and to do that. Even though it sounds, to the you can't say naked eye, to the naked ear, it sounds hypocritical when you're like, don't use social media, and they're watching this right now,
Sure.
and it's our clip that we're putting up there. But it's the Bible. I believe the way I described it, the Bible is a roadmap, which has been said plenty of times. The Bible is a roadmap that gets you to that one goal, that gets you to the cross, that gets you to heaven, that gets
Yes.
you to follow where the steps that you need to be. The phone, social media, is a tool that you can use, and we have to be careful to not allow our phones and social media to become the roadmap, right? Everybody that posts online, every Christian influencer is not, feeding us the right information,
Sure.
and we can leave it at that, just so we stay out of
Yeah.
trouble. But we got to be careful whenever that becomes our roadmap, and our Bible just becomes something that we every now and then get a couple resources, or a couple nice little quotes from. We pick and choose that. We have to be sure to keep the Bible as the roadmap. This is the law. This is what's real. This is what's true. But we use our phones, we use social media, we use Instagram, Facebook, all the things as a tool to help get other people on that road with us
Yep.
toward
That's
heaven.
that's so perfect. Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it should help us be aware of what we are sharing, what we are posting, what
Yeah.
we're preaching out to the world. Because if we are doing what we talked about just a few moments ago, and we're just posting for gratification about how horrible our day was and how hard life is, just so somebody will comment, everything's okay. Like, are we posting and sharing something that's showing other people, man, they're on the right path,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
and they're just going through what I'm going through, so why would I devote my life to the God that they're saying that they serve? We should use it as a tool to help draw people, to encourage other Christians, but as well to be that living testimony, in any way, shape, or form that we can, to get people on this road with us toward heaven.
Man, I think that's so true. Like, can someone follow your page and follow Christ? Like, that's
Follow you as you follow Christ,
yeah, I mean,
literally.
that's the thing. And so,
Yeah.
I spoke about that at our national youth convention this past year of like, can someone mirror you? Can
Yeah.
someone copy and paste you and look at
So I
your
believe
life?
that in the translation, it actually it stands for imitate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's it. So
Yep.
you're trying to, and so it gets back to like, can you just be real? Because following something that's fake is, it's like that. I've asked kids time and time again, and even adults, it's like, how many times a day have you text that laughy, like crying emoji, and you're not crying, much less laughing. You know what I'm saying? So it's not
LOL
real.
in your
Like,
stone cold
yeah,
face,
I mean,
just
it's like but laughter is one of those things that just, it signifies acceptance. So like,
right.
you want to be laughed at, you want to be, feel like you're, accepted. It's funny. Like it's just, and so that's just a perfect example of like, it's not real. And so as much as it's being sent and as much as it's normal, it's still not real. Like it's not,
Mhm.
there's certain things that you'll see in the text. Paul's like, I'm not going to write this down. I'm going to come tell you face to
Yeah.
face, like, so you can see my expression. You can hear my words. This is not just putting in a pen and paper because, man, in pen and paper, to some extent would be, maybe even a little more expressive than a text message,
Yeah.
but I mean, you got all this stuff that's not real. And so, we ask ourselves today, like, when's the last time it's been since you really talked to somebody, listened to somebody, time you felt truly seen, by somebody? And I think those are the things you have to ask yourself and have to step back and say, is social media fulfilling the things that I need it to? Do I need to change how I use it? Do I look at it like even some people that they might be at a season or might be at an age where they don't need it at all, And I think sometimes we introduce it too early. Like if you can't be mature and you're not disciplined, you can't have a mature, respectful conversation to an adult or in person, then you definitely don't need social media.
Yeah.
Definitely probably don't need a phone with like text feeds and stuff. Cause if you're going to be disrespectful in person, you're definitely going to be, out of control on a platform where no one can even see you or no one can even be. And so all those things are just, they all scream like discipline,
Mhm.
lines, like it's not the same for you as it is for me. And so, um, I think there are some lines that could be for everybody, but I think overall, we just have to discipline ourselves to say, hey, you know, it's like vitamins, I'll take a supplement or a vitamin, or I'll do a workout or I'll do something, but it's like, again, your body eventually, like, it'll stop producing that whatever it produces because you're just taking it.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're not careful, whatever you're doing, you do it so much that your body, like I said, that adaptability of mankind all of a sudden says, well, I don't have to produce this anymore because you're feeding it to me. And so
Mhm.
if you're not careful, it will be, it'll all this social media stuff that's not real will then try to fulfill something and it'll stop, again, you become numb to the things that you need. You become numb to a move of God or the presence of God or a relationship with your parents or relationship with friends. And it's like, I'm very curious to see the longevity of how relationships survive, not just marriages, but overall, in seeing social media be so prevalent in the lives of teenagers, like never before. I mean,
Yeah.
this is probably, we're coming into probably our first generation where we can truly see that they've had it probably too early all the way through, a married life where they're beginning to have kids. How is it going to affect them and their realness of how they raise their kids, how they, live a married life and covenant with one another and
Yeah.
engaging in conversation and dealing with conflict and all those things because I've said it time and time again, it's like those people that come up and like, hey, what do you think about me getting married? I'm like, to who? And they're like, well, so and so, we've been talking online for however long, and like that's not like a joke, but that's real. Like,
Yeah.
you don't even see them together, they don't even eat together, they don't like have, it's like you guys don't even sit with each other, like, and you want to get married, and so
Yeah.
this virtual world has become so accepted, and
Mhm.
so I think
It's
there
just what
has
they
to
know.
do I
It's just what they know. I was
I agree.
I was thinking when you were talking, I can't remember the exact term for it, but it's like, I mean, it's not just the fact that, like, guys in our school can name the height, weight, favorite foods, all this kinda stuff of their favorite athletes, right? But they can't tell me one Bible story, or they can't tell me 2 of the favorite things of another student, another classmate that's in the room with them, right? They can't name anything like that, and they're getting to know what is in front of them online, and there's some sort of term with, like, when you meet a celebrity or when you meet somebody famous, and you think that you already know them because 'cause you've watched their life on YouTube or you watch their life on social media. I can't remember the term for it, but you feel like you're best friends already because you know everything, even though they have no idea, who you are, right? Which is, like, scary when you relate it to the spiritual sense, but you're getting to know that stuff and those people and those influencers online, whereas you could be getting to know the Lord. One of them's never going to know you, but hopefully the other knows you very well and says, "Well done," at the end of
Absolutely. I
it
mean,
all.
that's where it's all going to end up, right? Well done,
Yeah.
thou good, or depart from me, I never knew you. And I think
Yeah.
that's a hard, hard one to swallow. And it's like, how
Yeah.
many times I've walked up to people and like, hey, it's nice to meet you. Like, well, I'll follow you. I feel like I know you guys. I mean, the way people
Yeah.
visit church, like, we watch you guys online. We already know, like, we know your kids' names. We know this, we know that. Like, you preached this last week. You did this, you did that. I'm like, man, it's like,
That's weird.
more than some of the people in the room. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and so it's a thing where it's like, it's just so interesting that you have those conversations. It's like,
Yeah.
we have people that, they've supplemented, like, and it's not intentional. It's like these people have never attended our church. My wife ran
Oh,
into
yeah.
somebody yesterday, and it's like, I watch y'all service. I attend your church online. I live in a county over or whatever. It's like, hey, you should come. It's like
Yeah.
she's never attended, never been here, but like she's just talking about the song my wife sung last week. And this is like, it's such a thing where, and I've mentioned this time and time again, you just said it, it's a tool, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that can be supplemented. It's not, you know, this and swapping for this. It's just in addition to, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think, you can allow it to help you minister the gospel, to spread the gospel, to learn more about, God and the things of God and what people are trying to do through, music and content. And, I mean, man, there's more content than there's ever been and stuff that we
Yeah.
have no excuse not to grow and to expand and to connect, but not at the, expense of our relationship with God and our true connection with one another, and so, but man, I think, be aware, I think that could be our kind of cry to the listeners today is like, hey, if you, um, stop taking it for a little bit and see how your body reacts. That's always a
Right.
thing for me. Like, hey,
Right.
how much am I become dependent upon it? I could feel like the first time that I took this supplement or this vitamin, I could feel it the first couple weeks, but now I become accustomed to it, and that's the way I feel. And so I'll
Yep.
stop taking it for a few weeks to just kind of refresh my body as well. So the same thing, I think that's the concept of fasting in the Bible. You kind of get your body back to where, it's like I'm not going to become dependent upon anything but God, right?
Yeah.
And so, I encourage you guys, that are listening, if social media is a thing where you're super involved, take a day, take a week, move everything around, adjust your apps around, step off for a little bit and just see maybe some of the things that you used to feel and some of the things that you're frustrated with, whether it be fear or just simple anger or like, distraction. You feel like you can't get nothing done, whatever the case may be. It could be as extreme as something that has you bound to something that's just simply keeping you from being productive. You could just step back from it. And that's always a great way to evaluate. And that's a scriptural context that we can learn that is, very much in our makeup as humans to just say, hey, what if I, you know, don't do this for a bit? Why don't I just see how that makes me feel? Why don't I see how that changes my routine and my daily, connections? And so, that's something I just, I've had move my apps around, put my social media page, apps on the last page or whatever the case may be. And I've had tons of students, college students especially, are just like, man, this has just changed so much for me that I can, actually have all this free time and I'm getting stuff done. I feel better about myself or whatever. But
Yeah.
um, man, I really appreciate you jumping on here and having the conversation. This is where, a lot of our world is happening, and especially for parents, for teens, them to be able to listen and just, maybe be encouraged that um, everybody's trying to navigate it. It's a new land, but it's a land that has to have some lines in it, right? And so,
Absolutely.
but I appreciate you, man, and all that you're doing there, not just in North Carolina, but across the world, and helping us create good, um, godly content out there. And we love you and Brianna and just everything y'all are doing. But thanks for jumping on here. And
Thank
we
you.
want to say thanks to everybody for listening. And again, if you would help us out, just like, share, comment, and just let us know what you think about the content and give us some ideas. If there's anything you want to hear us talk about, we'll do this again sometime soon. And thank you, Brother Roberts. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. God bless.